We are very pleased to be joined by another in-studio guest. We have not had many. You join the likes, Lucy Hale, of, I think, Henry Golding and Don Johnson next week.
Yes.
So it's mostly,
big leagues.
Yeah,
cool.
It's mostly been Zoom, but Lucy Hale, thank you for joining us. How are you?
I'm great for that exact reason. Like, I was walking around New York yesterday. First of all, it's perfect in the fall, but it's just, I got here the day the marathon was ending.
Oh, yeah.
And my hotel was right by there, and I was like, it's just so nice to see people in good spirits and to see people in person. You know, it's convenient to do things from the comfort of your own home through Zoom, but it's not the same. It's not the same. So I'm good, happy to be here.
Yeah, doing the interviews and stuff, I'm sure, like, where you only have to, like, really just have, like, a nice top on, like, that's us. It's like I had, like, crappy shorts on for a year.
It was sweatpantsville for me for a long time. I will say jeans are overrated. That was my main takeaway from
real.
the last couple of years.
We have a lot to talk about, but let's start off with Ragdoll, new series.
Yes.
Based on a book by the same name. Series follows the murder of 6 people who have been dismembered and sewn into the shape of a grotesque body. That's lovely.
Yeah,
the
just
Ragdoll,
light, you know, really light stuff.
As detectives begin to investigate, the killer begins to taunt them. AMC Plus, November 11th. But in your words, tell them what they can expect from Ragdoll.
So Ragdoll, to me, and why, first of all, I'm the first girl to watch a show like this. I'm always like more drawn to the gruesome, darker things in life. But I've never done a show like this. But what I love so much about how Freddie, who wrote the 6 scripts, he adapted from Daniel Cole. What's his name?
Daniel Cole.
Daniel Cole. I should know that. I didn't read the book, though, because my character was actually a dude in the book. So they were like, just don't read it. Anyway, I loved that the show kind of was genre blending. And it's kind of, there's this really great dark humor mixed in with, obviously, the gruesomeness of trying to find out who the killer is. And so I loved that it was kind of, genre bending in a way, because there's a lot of shows like this, right? And I really feel like this one stands apart because it is obviously about finding, you know, who did these horrible things to these 6 victims, but it's more an inside look at the police force and racism, sexism within that world, and also like getting to play a female in a man's world was very fun for me. So there's a lot of things going on.
In a lot of like your previous stuff, in as far as like horror thriller stuff goes, you're usually like a victim and solving things from the inside out. But just from what we can tell in the trailers, you're solving from like the outside in, which I'm sure is like a little bit refreshing, right?
Yeah, it is. Like I laugh because I feel like I've played pretend detectives. Like in Pretty Little Liars, we kind of were unofficial detectives because the police force in that town were terrible. But to actually get to play a detective was very fun. And what's great about the show is like the killer is always 10 steps ahead from the 3 main characters. But for me in particular, I play someone called Edmonds, and she is the only American on the show. But she is sort of the audience's point of view the whole time. So they're always like neck and neck with my character, which is cool.
There's a lot of the same minds behind this that made Killing Eve, which is like a fantastic show. Obviously, like won like a trillion Emmys or something like that. Is there like sort of similar vibes that people can expect from that show in this one?
Yeah, I mean, I think that tonally they are really similar. I mean, I could only hope that we capture what they did with Killing Eve in our show. But what makes Killing Eve great and what makes Ragdoll unique is that darkness, that like dark foundation mixed in with this really twisted, dark sense of humor, which I feel like British people do very well.
Yes.
They know how to do humor right. Yeah.
Yeah, they have it very, very down pat.
Yeah, exactly.
You play, like you mentioned, you're playing a detective. I saw, and I had to look it up because I was on like just looking at the credits. It's like DC, whatever. I forgot the character's name. Right? You tell.
Yeah. No,
DC
I didn't know what. So DC stands for Detective Constable, which I'm sort of. Everyone's important in that world, but I'm kind of the bottom of the barrel, like have to work my way up. And then DS is Detective Sergeant and DI is Detective Inspector?
That sounds right.
I mean, I could have sold that and you guys maybe would have believed me, but yeah, that's exactly what it is. But yeah, and so she's the new kid on the block. And but it was fun. I actually got to talk to real detectives, and I sort of unofficially feel like I've been preparing for this my whole life because I mean, true crime is very popular right now, but I love the podcasts. I love the documentaries, Forensic Files, constantly watching that. So I guess subconsciously I've been like holding on to all this information, and now I finally get to pretend like I know what I'm doing. I still don't quite, but I just play
as
play a
Americans
detective
love
on
that
TV.
too. Even like Sherlock, like, people are like obsessed with that. Like the British detective world is so different than our detective world. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And detective constable. Once you introduce the word constable, the first thing that comes to my mind is like the funny British police hats.
Yes.
Tell me you got to wear at least
I
one.
unfortunately did not. I got to wear basically the same outfit for 4 months because the show is 6 episodes and takes place over the course of 6 days. So I was in Doc Martens and a vintage leather
issue.
jacket, but no fun hats, unfortunately.
yeah, it's tough.
But if we come back for a season 2, I'm going to put that in my
That has to be-
contract.
I need
Must have
no
the cool
changes,
hat.
just one funny
fun
hat.
Yeah.
Season or series too is the question,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the
We'll
British people
see.
do call it a series.
Oh, that's
which
right.
is like,
Yeah.
And they also shoot differently. I wasn't used to shooting in blocks. I'm used to doing it episode by episode. So we shot 1 through 3 together all over the place, and then 4 through 6 together, which was a lot different than what I'm used to, but kept me on my toes.
Well, while we have you here, we have to talk to you about a whole bunch of stuff because, like, I think a lot of people in like the critical world, like, they say like, oh, like Lucy Hale, she's the scream queen now.
Oh, that's
and like
so kind.
I was curious if that's something that you embrace, or is that something like I don't want to be narrowed down because you're like multifaceted, you do so many different things. Like, I don't know if some people like I don't want to be like burdened down with one thing, or is it something you embrace? You know?
I mean, I think I think now that I'm a little bit older, I do embrace it because, like, what a great problem to have. And I love making content like that. Like, I have so much fun, like I said, in the darker space. And horror films in particular are probably the most challenging because there's so few really good horror films because the stakes are constantly so high. So like having that stamina and having that energy throughout the film and having the audience right there along with you, like, it just doesn't happen. Like we could name plenty of bad horror films, but like if you know that if you're watching a horror film and it's got you engaged the whole time, that they did a really good job. So so to answer your question, did I answer your question? I welcome it with open arms, but also like I like to keep my options open.
Yes.
So I'll do a rom-com and then I'll go be a, what'd you call me, a scream queen?
Yeah.
that is a
sounds
pretty
like
good title to have. That's yeah.
That's
You're not
so
like
nice.
the Scream Viscount or something.
Yeah.
Scream Duke. Like,
yeah,
you
like
know,
Scream,
Queen is
like
dog.
yeah, I'll take it. Great.
Did you see yourself though, like all these years ago? Like our other podcast, we just did a whole thing on the most 2000 things ever, and you were on one of the most 2000 things ever, American Juniors. That's where I first ever saw you. That is like
2003.
I still watch Survivor, so like I'm
Yeah.
a reality like junkie. But
Yeah.
like, did you see yourself like all those years ago? Be like, wow, I'm going to be in a lot of horror or crime things. Because you said earlier already today, like you love that type of stuff. But could you
Yeah.
imagine like that would be kind of maybe your biggest lane?
I had no idea my life would unfold in any of the ways that it did. Like, I definitely knew I was going to be in entertainment and be an actor. And I was so naive. I was like, well, of course I am. Like, I literally had no plan B. So thank God it worked out because I don't know what I'd be doing. But no, I mean, I think after Pretty Little Liars, that sort of was in the darker, for teens, that was like a pretty dark show. And doing that show, I was like, I kind of like this a little too much. Like, I liked it. So I could definitely, see myself doing tons more of this stuff. But like I said, I'll do a musical, though, on the opposite end of things.
Well, that's
It's
actually,
like-
it's funny you say that because I was actually going to ask that because you have a very strong musical background, but you haven't and now especially so many Broadway shows are being adapted into movies and they're redoing West Side Story. Is that something that you've kind of had on your radar? And you're like, maybe I want to start singing a little more.
Yeah, I lived in New York. It was right before, it was 2019, and I hadn't really experienced Broadway. And that just like reignited my love for music. Cause I don't think I'd ever record music or tour again, but I would love to find ways to utilize it through acting. Like what have I auditioned for? I auditioned for a lot of the live action stuff like Grease and Hairspray and, didn't get the gigs, but that's okay. But it's definitely something that I got it on the vision board.
It's good to miss out on some of them. Cats probably could have been a good miss.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
that was the big miss of my career.
Yeah.
I just read
Pleasant miss.
I just read an Andrew Lloyd Webber thing yesterday where he said he bought a dog after he saw Cats because that's how much
That
it upset
is
him.
so iconic.
Which I
wish
can hear
had
him
said
saying,
that.
yeah.
Yeah. Very confusing.
On the topic of horror, though, you've done a couple Blumhouse movies, and we're always fast because the Blumhouse machine is one of the most fascinating
crazy,
things I've
right?
ever seen. It's like low budget horror makes a ton of money. Low budget horror makes a ton of money. Then it's like Black Klansman, and it's like it's the
Or
it's insane.
Whiplash. They
Right.
did Whiplash.
Right.
They'll
Crazy.
throw that out at you. Get Out obviously was massive.
They clearly have like a vision with horror, and they're putting horror more in a mainstream scope than I think it was, because you mentioned like there are so many horror movies, but for a while it felt like there was a lull where it's like horror, whatever. But now when a horror movie comes out and they're kind of a big part of it, and you've worked with them so much, is there something that they do that kind of you just kind of get their vision with horror?
I mean, Jason Blum is just really smart at knowing what will work and what will translate. I mean, the Paranormal Activity movies, like those to me are the first Paranormal Activity is maybe hands down one of my favorite horror films of all time. And then there's movies that these aren't Blumhouse, but Hereditary and Midsummer.
Oh, yeah.
People are just thinking outside of the box now, like, which I think is really cool. And then, but what Blumhouse did with Truth or Dare, this model of low budget, a lot of money in marketing, but just taking a classic idea of Truth or Dare and putting an evil twist on it. Like, the idea is simple, but he just knows. He knows how to. I don't know what the magic like touches, other than he thinks differently and gives things a chance. Like I want to say, this could be wrong, but a lot of people passed on Get Out, and Jason read it and was like, no, this is genius. We're gonna make this work.
I feel like that's important to see too, especially in Hollywood from your end. It's like seeing things that get a chance taken on them, because it is a lot of sequels, and it is like, I mean, we're big Marvel fans, big Star Wars fans. It is kind of the same big stuff, but if the little things aren't even tried, whether they work or not, it's like we could get trapped into a really just the same things over and over again.
Right. Well, what I was talking about earlier, that like Queen's Gambit took 20 years to get sold because
Squid Game's another one.
Squid Game. So it's like, I mean, you never know, but it's always nice when you meet people who give you a chance or give the project a chance.
Willing to give you a chance, yeah.
Yeah.
Something I've always wondered in horror versus almost any other genre except for maybe comedy is just how do you like manufacture fear, right? Because with different people, I'm sure it's different, because like directors maybe want to induce it through the set or like make it for you. Other directors might want to let you do your thing. What do you find is like the easiest way to do it?
I find for me, like those types of movies, as less rehearsal time as possible, because like you can't manufacture that. Like, it's either going to happen on the day or it's not. But there's something that happens for me, like when you're running around and when you're breathing really hard, your body thinks something's actually wrong, even though you're faking it. Like, if you're running around, your heartbeat's racing and you're screaming and yelling, there's something that happens that your body just naturally emits that fear, I guess.
You can trick your body.
You can trick your, the same way like actors can cry or do anything else. I mean, rehearsal time is important, don't get me wrong, but I think that with certain things, it's better just to do it on the day. I don't know. And I've appreciated, I worked with Jeff Wadlow twice, and he did Truth or Dare and Fantasy Island, and he is very nice about letting the actors be completely free, which is nice, because if you get too technical with all that too, there's a time and a place.
Especially like big emotions like fear or like laughter,
right?
right?
You just gotta let it be.
Make it organic and natural. Is there like a recent horror movie that you weren't part of that you were like, holy shit, this is awesome, like I wish I could be part of a movie like this, or like this is like the next big horror thing?
I thought Midsummer was genius, because
you're talking to
have
two
you
big
ever
fans.
seen a horror film in broad daylight
Daytime,
that captures what it's like to be in a bad trip? Like, it was horrifying. And Florence Pugh is, no one else could have done what she did. I'm like, I was exhausted for her watching this whole movie. I just thought it was a really beautiful film, first of all, the costumes and the people, and I feel like they filmed it in Sweden or something. I don't know, somewhere gorgeous. It was just everything, the opposite of scary, yet it was one of the scarier films I've ever seen, because it was so psychological.
We keep like circling Ari Aster, I feel like, right?
Yeah, we just did Will Poulter, who was in the
Yeah.
we talked to him.
Yeah.
It's so funny because it's such a simple idea. It's like, just turn the lights on. It's like that's, and then it makes it so different.
Exactly.
Like that movie in the dark, I'm sure would have been good.
Wait, which movie is this?
Midsummer,
yeah.
Midsummer,
It's
okay,
like just the fact that it's in the daylight. It's like, what a simple concept, yet
Yeah.
so horrifying.
It's so scary.
Changes everything. Yeah. You talked about Pretty Little Liars a little bit, and it's something about PLL is that it was a longer series. Now with Ragdoll, you're kind of in the series game. You've done plenty of movies as well, but that was a longer show. And so I used to work at ABC for Good Morning America. So
I was just there this morning.
It's like, but you were always there, whether it was, before the show started, mid-season finale, this.
Yeah.
Like, is that process, now you're doing this, and I don't know how long Ragdoll will go on for, but not to say like you disliked PLL, but that was a long process. That's 7 years of press tours and episodes. Like, is that something where your mindset now is like, do I ever want to do something that long again, that like committed, or is it like smaller series? Because even now, like the landscape of 5 years ago, shows are shorter now.
Yeah.
They're quicker.
I think it's, yes. So PLO, I was 20 when I booked it, almost 28 by the time we were done.
That's crazy,
like 165 episodes. But I think now it's more for me like the quality over the quantity. Like you can have really rich, amazing shows in 6-8 episodes. And I think that, not that I would be committed to doing something long term for sure, but I think that it would have to be something that really, really excited me. So for instance, if Ragdoll went on, I think it would always be really short seasons. I don't know if I could ever do 25 episode seasons again. Y'all, that's like 10 months of the year, and then it's Christmas, and then it's the holidays, and you're going home, and then you're starting again.
That's always fascinating.
Love that experience. Let me reiterate how great it was, and it changed my life. But it was a lot,
you say
especially
8
being
years.
that young.
Think about when people talk about like Harry Potter. It's like they did that for years,
forever.
But it was always they film, they do the movie, and they go back. But that's what always fascinated about with y'all is that you were always on they're back again at GMA, they're promoting this, they're doing this, and you're filming. It's like that is just,
it didn't stop. It really didn't stop,
ending.
and I didn't realize, because we were always in that PLL bubble, whether it was here doing press or filming. I didn't realize how massive the show was until I was outside of that bubble. So a year after, I was like, oh, holy crap. That was a really big deal. I don't know, and it was such a peak, and it's just riding that wave was crazy. But yeah, I feel like we were always at Good Morning America, weren't we?
Always some sort of activation.
Left us over there. Yeah.
You started, it was ABC Family, then it was free, but it never ended.
Yeah, never ended.
Disney Synergy, it's nothing like it.
You have a ton of TV credits, obviously a ton of movie credits too. When we ask anyone who's heavily involved in both worlds, is this just what they prefer, TV versus movies? Because some actors just prefer a TV show because you get to flesh out a character over a longer amount of time, but then there's also the pressure of is this going to get canceled? Is it going to get this? Is it going to get well-reviewed? And then with the movie, it's out and it's just, you're done with it.
Or
it's good or bad, whatever, it's done.
Or then Rotten Tomatoes could be 0% or whatever they do.
Well,
there's always, I always say my job is the love of my life and breaks my heart constantly, and I've been doing this almost my whole life since I was 15. So, so there's pros and cons. I mean, there is something kind of liberating about doing a film and an independent film in general, because you don't have so many cooks in the kitchen and you can kind of just do what you want, which is nice. TV, there is the freedom of you have more time to get to know the characters you're working with, and so after episode 1 or 2, you really get into a flow and get into your rhythm, and you don't always have that time with movies. So I didn't answer your question, but most of my work is in TV, and I guess TV, because I can sort of
flesh it out.
Yeah, and I usually really like all the people I play, so it's nice to kind of.
Which is funny because now you do see so many big stars you never would have imagined.
Nicole Kidman is the queen of TV.
Right, yeah. It's
and
unbelievable.
Also the queen of everything else.
Well, now she's the beginning of all movies at AMC too. So
yes,
it's just dominates both spaces.
Yeah, exactly.
So I won't make you tell this story, because my favorite thing is listening to interviews with people who have to tell the same damn story all the time. So I'm not going to make you tell the 50 Shades of Grey story.
Oh, I'll tell the 50 Shades of Grey story.
I'm gonna ask a follow-up on that. Okay. You've mentioned all the time that you auditioned for that. It was really awkward for you. It was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But is there another audition story for you? Because I feel like we don't ever ask anyone about audition stories. Is there a crazy audition story, maybe from early on in days where you're like, what the hell?
I do have one that, was it for Friday Night Lights?
Oh.
And it was with
Show or movie?
And it was a chemistry read.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's about Peter Berg, who I love and adore, and he's a genius. But I'm trying to think, are these? Yes. Okay, so I want to say these were both for Friday Night Lights. I had to have been new in LA, like 17, 18. And for some reason, I was asked to sing the national anthem by Peter Berg in an audition, and I'm like, I'm so confused, but
Tough
yes, I
song.
will. But he's like, okay, stop. But now you have to sing it like you're drunk. And I'm like, what does this have to do with the show? So I did. Needless to say, I didn't book the job. But for some reason, I did a chemistry read with Taylor Kitsch, which I also didn't get because, like, oh my God, he's the most beautiful person I've ever seen. And I didn't know I was walking into the room and he was going to be there. So there's lots of moments like that in my life and career. But the 50 Shades of Grey one is exactly what you think it would be. It's just like a very forward monologue. I was pretty young, and definitely not like confident or comfortable enough to be doing this audition.
I don't think you can ever be an age where that audition would ever not be uncomfortable.
I don't know. I thought Dakota Johnson was really great in the movie.
It's just that been a hard audition, I think,
Johnson, yeah.
for anyone, though. Yeah.
I don't. Yeah, not my brightest moment.
Well, I was going to say too. It's like, because when I think of auditions, I mean, all we know is from seeing it via, fictional TV. I think of like Emma Stone and La La Land. But I was going to say, like, is it always crazy? But I think being asked to sing a song that is considered like the hardest song to sing while
drunk.
pretending to
Pretending
be drunk while not drunk.
But like pretending to be drunk is the hardest thing to do. It's so hard to play drunk.
Every now and then, like, does that happen where you're like, why am I doing this for an audition? Like, is there just
Sometimes I'm like
ridiculous asks?
Yeah, why am I doing this to myself? Yeah, because I feel like I'm not auditioning. It's a different set of skills. Like, it's not how you would act on the day. And I feel like I've blown like 75% of my auditions because I still get nervous. And now everything's over Zoom, so there's a delay with the person who's reading with you.
Man.
I'm like, this is trash. I'm trash. I'm not getting it. But that's funny to me. It keeps me humble. Like I'm always challenged, and it's always fun. The Zoom auditioning's gotta stop. It's gotta stop, you guys.
I don't know anything about that. It's kind of funny. Right before this interview, our last interview, which was a few days ago, we interviewed Tony Hale, which is very funny.
Everyone thinks we're related. And what are the odds of that? That's so funny.
So we interviewed him a few days ago, and we asked him, okay, look, Tony, we're going to be interviewing another person with the same last name as you in a few days.
Yeah.
Can you ask a question to them? Without knowing who it is? And he's like, well, it's Lucy Hale, right? And we're like, yeah. And he's like, oh, yeah, I got to meet her once. She was like lovely, blah, blah, blah. You really like it?
Okay.
You're a big fan of yours.
Yeah, that's so nice.
And so he asked
Thanks,
you,
Tony.
do people ever ask if you're related to Alan Hale from Gilligan's Island? That was his question for you.
Yes. I get Alan Hale. I get Tony Hale. And then I also get Lizzie Hale, who's in Hailstorm.
Oh, okay.
No, there's a girl group called Hailstorm, and I believe her name is Lizzie Hale. And Lizzie Hale, if spoken really fastly, sounds like Lucy Hale.
Okay.
Right, okay.
Also, fun fact, John Wilkes Booth's
Was not the next name I thought you were about to say, by the way.
Wife. Who do you think I was going to
I just didn't. John Wilkes Booth would not have been the next name.
I know, this is just a fun Lucy Hale fact. John Wilkes Booth's fiance's name, Lucy Hale.
Lucy Hale. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe
not the person I want to be.
Yeah, that's
like compared to, but the other famous Lucy
I mean, Tony
Hale.
Hale told us he gets asked Nathan Hale a lot, who's like in the American Revolution. So I mean, there's a lot of American history Hales.
We've all got to be somehow.
We didn't really stump him too. We were like, it's somebody with a last name like you. It's
Yeah.
like, well, it's probably Lucy Hale. He wasn't like, there was not a ton of options. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to give you the same honor that we gave Tony. You're going to get to ask our next guest a question.
Okay.
In a few days, which is Rob Delaney. We're interviewing him for Home Alone, and he's going to be like the basically. You watched Home Alone, obviously the first movie, right?
Of course.
He's the new Wet Bandit, more or less, in the new Home Alone movie. So you get to ask the new Wet Bandit any question you want.
Okay, he might not be able to answer it because it might be a spoiler, but one of my favorite movie lines of all time is from Home Alone, and it's Buzz, your girlfriend, woof. Like, it's iconic.
He's in the movie, Buzz.
He is.
Yes, Buzz, your girlfriend,
The actual
woof.
actor.
I'm so excited. So I want to know if that line makes it into the movie or what his favorite one-liner from the movie is.
Okay.
But he may not be able to answer that because I know how it goes.
Unfortunately, not a Hale, too. We wish we could have just only...
Are you related? And also, are you related to Tony Hale? Is what I want to ask him.
We'll ask that. That's the first question.
Amazing.
And before you go, last thing we always do, we like getting 6 movies. Call it a 6-pack. 6 movies. It
Wow.
can be your favorite movies,
Okay.
I love asking for a guilty pleasure.
Okay.
Anything. Maybe something you watched recently, but 6 movie suggestions.
All right. Grease, because that was the movie that like made me want to be a performer.
Of course.
Oh my God. Shawshank Redemption, Forrest Gump, Notting Hill, guilty
pick.
pleasure. How many is that?
That is
4.
4.
I'm literally thinking of ones I've watched recently. Other movies. Paper Moon, amazing, and I just for the first time saw Singing in the Rain. Don't
Oh,
know
yeah.
what took me so long.
Great
I'm a
movie.
big musical fan.
That's
There's a grab bag of
That's a perfect movie.
all the ladies will like all those movies. I don't know if the gentleman.
Oh no,
listening.
Singing in the Rain
Yeah.
is for me.
Wow.
I'm not making up top 10
Great
movie of all
movie.
time. It
But
is
people
unbelievable.
just don't. You look at these shots. I'm like, how did they film this? It's just
It's
a different way of filmmaking.
It's
really
unbelievable.
cool.
There was a
Yeah.
gift that went around the other day of an Akira Kurosawa movie, and I was looking at it. I'm like, how?
How?
I don't think they could do that now.
Yeah.
Like how is that even
talent.
possible?
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
next level.
Ragdoll, November 11th.
Yes.
AMC Plus. Also, if you're listening in the UK, I believe it's also on Alibi.
It is.
Which
correct.
shout out to our UK. Somewhere you made fun of your hats earlier. They may have turned off the internet after we made fun of
I
the
also
hats.
said that Brits have the best humor.
Yeah, true.
That's true. Yes.
And a lot of the most really good-looking men
Well,
and
and if I-
very well-dressed people.
Wound
I
up by
love
saying the UK office is better than the American
Yeah.
office. That'll keep
Yes.
them.
Yeah,
that'll-
got it. And I like the hats. I definitely wasn't making fun.
Thank you so much. It was an
Thank
absolute
you.
pleasure. Yeah.
Thanks,
Thank you so
guys.
much. Yeah,
Appreciate
appreciate it.
it.